Hey guys, tonight we're taking a quiet step back from the digital mayhem and into a world where there are no cell phones, no cars, and absolutely no central heating. Welcome to winter with the Amish, a time of snowdrifts, simplicity, and the kind of cold that makes your bones write resignation letters. While most of us shiver when the Wi-Fi cuts out, these folks were waking up before dawn to milk cows in a blizzard by hand. So get ready, because surviving the winter as Amish isn't just a lifestyle. It's a full contact endurance sport wrapped in wool and stubbornness. Before we freeze our way into the past, take a second to like the video and subscribe. But only if you actually enjoy what I do here. No pressure. And tell me in the comments what temperature it is where you are right now. Bonus points if you're under 3 blankets or using a space heater that sounds like it's powering a small airport. Now, dim the lights, pull the quilt up to your ears, and imagine a world without thermostats, TikTok, or thermal socks. Let's quietly suffer together, one icy step at a time. Congratulations, you've just woken up in January. Not modern January, not bundle up and sprint to Starbucks January. You've woken up in the kind of January that doesn't care about your feelings, the kind that howls through every crack in the wood, whispers in your bones, and politely threatens to remove your toes in your sleep. You are Amish now. And it's winter. The good news? You're alive. The bad news? So are the roosters. And they're already screaming. Your eyelids flutter open to a dark, creaking silence. Not because it's peaceful, but because nothing in this room is electric. No buzzing refrigerator. No phone vibrating itself off the table. Just the symphony of wood groaning, wind moaning. And someone downstairs stoking a fire like their soul depends on it, which it probably does. Your bed is not a bed so much as a wooden frame with a horsehair mattress stuffed into it like someone lost a bet with upholstery. There are no springs, there is no bounce, there is only the sensation of sleeping on a modestly angry bale of hay. The quilt over you weighs about 40 pounds, hand-stitched over several winters by your great-aunt, and has the warming power of a large sheep. It smells faintly of cedar, sweat, and heritage. There's no duvet cover. There's just hope. You're wearing flannel. Not the stylish kind with a logo. The kind that was made on a loom by your cousin Miriam during the long evenings when spinning wool was considered both a chore and a viable form of entertainment. It's stiff in the elbows, itchy in the armpits, and somehow already damp. Because Amish winter does not allow dry clothing. Not indoors, not outside, not in your dreams. You try to move, your knees protest, your back sounds like a deck being walked on by a nervous horse. It's 4:45 a.m, and your body is already wondering if you're dying. You're not, but the next few hours will try to change that. Let's talk identity. You're not you anymore. You're Abraham Yoda, give or take. That's your name now. Or something dangerously similar. You are 23 years old, which, in Amish terms, means you're still young enough to lift heavy things, but old enough to be expected to know how to churn butter, raise a barn, and spiritually lead a family of 7. You have never used a microwave. You have never taken a selfie. Your closest brush with technology is the steel wheel on your buggy. You're not just off the grid. You've never even waved at the grid from a distance. You live in Pennsylvania, or possibly Ohio, or Indiana. It doesn't matter. What matters is that the temperature outside is about negative ridiculous, and your only insulation is a layer of frozen moral fortitude and a barn wall that doubles as a wind tunnel. You do not own a furnace. You do not own a thermostat. You do not own pants with elastic in them. Your religion, which you don't call a religion, just the way we live, is not something you take lightly. It's not for holidays. It's not for social media bios. It's for every moment, every movement, every unheated, unlit corner of your day. You don't drive, you don't text, and you definitely don't Google how to survive the cold without crying. Crying is considered prideful. Now let's get something straight. The Amish are not quaint, they are not cute, they are not historical cosplay. They are resilient in the way that river rocks are resilient, worn, solid, and completely indifferent to your comfort. They believe in God, in community, in silence, and in doing everything the hard way, because the hard way builds character, and possibly frostbite. So here you are, a newly forged Amish man with calloused hands and a resting expression of solemn resolve. Your idea of fun involves whittling, hymn singing, and occasionally standing near a stove for warmth. You're not allowed to own electricity, but you're expected to survive temperatures that would make a polar bear shiver. And somehow, spoiler alert, you will. But first you have to get out of bed. Your feet reach for the edge and are immediately punished. The wooden floor is so cold it could legally be classified as a natural predator. Your socks, if you wore them to bed, are now somewhere beneath the quilt. If you didn't wear them to bed, you've already made a tactical error. You reach for your trousers. They're not pants. Amish don't wear pants, they wear trousers. Thick woolen ones, with suspenders that were hand sewn by your sister, using thread made from the emotional residue of previous winters. They're stiff. Not in the fashionable way. In the these might stand up on their own and leave the house without me way. Your shirt is plain, your hat is plain, your coat is a serious wool overcoat that weighs approximately the same as a large sheepdog. No zippers, buttons only, and not even metal ones. That would be too modern. You've got wooden toggles, possibly bone, possibly hope. The air inside your room is not air in the traditional sense. It's more like the ghost of air. It hovers, it judges. You can see your breath, and it looks concerned. Downstairs someone is already moving. Footsteps creak. A door groans. A shovel hits frozen earth. Someone's milking a cow in the dark. Someone else is starting the stove. And someone is already humming a hymn about perseverance. You haven't even stood up yet, and the day is leaving without you. You finally swing your legs over the edge of the bed. Your toes meet the floor like they're entering a hostile negotiation. The planks beneath you are so cold they feel wet, even though they're not. They just have the ability to convince your nervous system they are. The sensation shoots up your spine and into your soul. Your entire body lets out a single internal scream, muffled only by generations of Amish repression. There is no heater. The concept of central heating exists, but not in this house, not in this community. What you have instead is the stove, a black cast iron beast in the middle of the downstairs room that's been slowly chewing on logs since 3 a.m. It radiates heat in a 5-foot radius. Beyond that, it's just dreams. If you want warmth, you have to earn it. Step by step, misery by misery. You reach for your long underwear, which is folded on the wooden chair by the bed. Or was. Turns out your younger brother got cold in the night and took it. So now you get to start your day with betrayal. You grab what's left, a wool undershirt and one sock that smells faintly of last Thursday's chores. You contemplate whether to say something, but confrontation is prideful, and pride is a sin, so you say nothing. Just log it quietly under emotional debts to be paid via stern eye contact. Getting dressed is not an act of fashion. It's an act of strategy. Every layer must be calculated. You need enough to survive the walk to the barn, but not so much that you start sweating. Because if you sweat, that moisture will freeze and you will die. Not immediately, but eventually. And with enormous dignity. You add another layer. Flannel shirt, heavy trousers. You wrap a scarf around your neck that was knitted by someone with vengeance in their heart. It's 80% wool, 20% sadness, and it scrapes your skin like penance. You open your bedroom door. The hallway is darker than regret. Electricity isn't allowed, so there are no light switches. Just oil lamps and the faint silver glow of dawn bleeding through the slats. You shuffle forward like a nervous bear. The floor creaks. Everything creaks. The whole house sounds like it's praying for spring. The staircase is narrow, steep, and made of the kind of wood that has opinions. Every step lets out a sound like it's about to give up. You descend slowly, trying not to wake the babies. Because if you wake the babies, you will suffer. Not now. But at some point in the day, you'll be assigned to rocking duty, which involves sitting in a chair for 3 hours with a shrieking infant and pretending you're grateful for the experience. Downstairs, the smell of the stove hits you. It's a comforting combination of smoke, pine sap, and yesterday's oatmeal that someone spilled and no one wiped up. The stove is roaring now, not out of joy, but out of duty. Your father is feeding it like it owes him money. He doesn't look up when you enter, just nods once, hands you a kettle, and points toward the water pump. This is not small talk hour. This is winter. You step outside. Immediately, the air slaps your face like it knows what you did. Your nostrils freeze shut. Your ears retract. Your eyes start leaking, not out of emotion but out of protest. The snow is everywhere. It doesn't sparkle. It doesn't look magical. It looks like judgment. Like nature trying to erase your house from the landscape, one flake at a time. The walk to the pump is short but traumatic. Each footstep crunches like you're stepping on tiny frozen secrets. You reach the pump, grab the iron handle, and immediately regret every choice you've made in life. The metal is so cold it feels hot. You pump anyway, because that's what you do now. You're Amish in winter. Your hands don't belong to you. They belong to the work. Water finally sputters out. Sluggish, reluctant, like it's trying to stay underground. You fill the kettle and haul it back inside, where the stove is still humming its ancient song of functional suffering. Your mother is now awake. She's already cooking. She's been awake for an hour. No makeup, no caffeine. Just raw determination and a terrifying ability to multitask in silence. She's slicing something. Could be potatoes. Could be frozen apples. Could be your future. You don't ask. Your siblings are waking up. They emerge like cautious woodland creatures. Nobody speaks above a whisper. The rule is unspoken but ironclad. Before breakfast and prayer, no one is allowed to be enthusiastic. The baby is already crying. The dog is already whining. The rooster is still screaming. You take a seat on the bench near the window. There's no cushion, just wood. The view outside is a frozen field dotted with grey trees and the faint shape of a buggy under a tarp. You can hear the wind howling past the barn. You know what's coming. Morning chores. Your father is already putting on his coat. It's not a coat by today's standards. It's a wool fortress. It's been patched 19 times and still refuses to die. He grabs the lantern, grunts, and opens the door. Cold rushes in like an uninvited spirit. You follow him into the snow because that's what suns do. You head to the barn. It looms in the fog like a large, judgmental beast. Inside, the animals are waiting. The cows are steaming in the cold, their breath rising in clouds. The goats look annoyed. The chickens look asleep. You look like someone who hasn't blinked since last Thursday. You light the lantern and start the milking. By hand, because of course. There are no machines here. There's just you, a stool, and a warm udder that somehow manages to feel both soothing and vaguely inappropriate. The bucket fills slowly. The milk is warm against the frozen air. Your fingers start to ache. You ignore it. You move to the next cow, and the next, and the next. Outside the barn, the wind continues its campaign of psychological warfare. Inside, it's slightly warmer, but only because you're sitting near something that farts heat. Your boots are soaked in straw, snow, and whatever creative fluids the animals have released overnight. You no longer care. Your soul has retreated to a high place. Back in the house, breakfast is served, not eaten, served. This is not a brunch. This is a refueling stop. Oatmeal, dark bread, apple butter, maybe eggs if the chickens were feeling generous. You eat in silence, chewing each bite like it owes you answers. The heat from the stove barely reaches the table, so you eat quickly, before your food reverts to its natural frozen state. Then comes prayer. Heads bowed, hands folded. A moment of gratitude that somehow feels both peaceful and slightly passive-aggressive, like, thank you for this day, even though it's trying to kill us. You've been awake for 2 hours. Your hands are cracked. Your feet are numb. Your stomach is full of hot cereal and quiet defiance. And the sun is just now rising. The sun has risen, technically. It's still grey. The kind of grey that doesn't illuminate anything, just reveals how many chores you haven't done yet. Winter sunlight here is less a blessing and more a reminder. A reminder that it's not nighttime anymore, so you don't get to pretend you're warm. Your sister is feeding the fire again. She does it without flinching, lifting logs that could double as blunt weapons, sliding them in like a librarian shelving overdue punishment. The stove is a living thing now. It hisses, it crackles, it breathes, and it always wants more. Like an angry iron parent that only speaks in sparks. You're sent outside to help clear the path to the smokehouse. Because of course there's a smokehouse. Where else would you keep the salted pork and frozen despair? The shovel is wooden-handled, iron-tipped, and emotionally manipulative. It looks simple, but demands everything. The snow is knee-deep in places, crusted over by a layer of ice that seems to mock your efforts. Every scoop is a gamble. Sometimes the blade slices clean. Sometimes it bounces off like you've insulted it. Sometimes it just sticks there, refusing to move like a frozen insult. There are no snowplows, no road salt, no municipal services. If you want to get to the smokehouse, you have to carve a path like a very cold pioneer reenacting a scene no one asked for. Your fingers go numb, then they burn, then they go numb again. It's a cycle, like grief. You finish an hour later, just in time to feel the snow begin again. Light at first, then heavier, then sideways. The kind of snow that doesn't fall, it attacks. It finds your neck. It finds your wrists. And it finds the one gap in your coat that you forgot to button and settles in like a passive-aggressive relative who plans to stay all week. Back inside, the fire has grown. It's finally doing its job. You stand near it like a moth that just found God. Your skin tingles. Your boots steam. For a brief, blessed moment, your hands remember what circulation feels like. But the work is far from done. Someone needs to refill the water barrel. Someone needs to check the attic for frozen leaks. Someone needs to start kneading the bread. And someone else needs to churn the butter. Guess who's free? You are. You're always free. Because rest is vanity, and vanity is frowned upon unless it's inside a well-folded bonnet. You're handed a wooden churn. It's heavy, vaguely sticky, and still smells like the last batch. Your job is simple. Agitate, stir, shake, pound, repeat. You sit by the window, staring out into the frozen grey like a soldier on watch, your arms slowly turning to stone. The butter doesn't form out of love. It forms out of stubbornness and upper body endurance. If you stop, it doesn't happen. If you complain, it gets assigned to you again tomorrow. Your forearms ache. Your knuckles crack. You press on. And this is the part no one tells you. The Amish didn't survive the brutal winters with magic or secret techniques. They survived because they just did. Because not doing was never an option. Because you were raised to believe that suffering has value and silence has dignity. And warmth is not a right, it's a moment. Something you glimpse when you work hard enough, pray quietly enough, and stay humble long enough to earn it for 10 blessed minutes by the stove. Lunch arrives, which is to say noon happens and food reappears. Thick bread, again. Soup, made from root vegetables that haven't been fresh since harvest, and still taste vaguely like the cellar they were stored in. Cheese that bites back. And maybe a dried apple ring or two if the pantry was kind. You eat quietly, seated shoulder to shoulder with siblings who smell like livestock and resilience. Conversation, if it happens, is subdued. Nobody gossips. Nobody brags. It's not a meal. It's maintenance. After lunch, you're given a new task. Splitting wood. Because if you want heat, you feed the stove. And if you want to feed the stove, you split the logs. And if you want to split the logs, you go outside and pretend you're not slowly becoming a sentient icicle in a hat. The axe is blunt, the wood is knotty. Your gloves are a suggestion, not a solution. You brace the log. You swing, it doesn't split. You swing again. Still nothing. The third time it cracks slightly and a splinter hits you in the face, just to remind you who's boss. Eventually the pile grows. Your arms shake, your breath fogs, your feet throb. But the work is satisfying in a way modern jobs never are. You can see the progress. The wood pile grows, the stove stays lit, and no one applauds. Because applause is for concerts. This is just life. Later, there's Bible study, or hymn singing, or both. You sit with your family in a circle around the kitchen table. Oil lamps flicker. The fire hisses. Pages turn. Someone clears their throat and begins reading scripture in the calm, emotionless tone of someone who's been up since 4 a.m. milking a goat with attitude problems. The children squirm. The dog snores. You pretend not to notice your fingers twitching from the cold. The Bible verses are familiar. You've heard them 1,000 times. But repetition is the point. Truth, like firewood, must be stacked neatly and stored deep. Afterward, more chores. Evening barn check, woodpile update, lamp cleaning, sock mending. By now the sky is dark again. Not nightfall, just winter. The kind of winter that starts at 3:30 p.m. and doesn't let go until April. You light another lantern. You grab another log. You mutter a silent prayer to no one in particular. And then, Finally, the day slows. Dinner is stew. Hot. Simple. Surprisingly good. You eat slower now, aware that this might be your last warm moment before sleep reclaims you, and the frost creeps in again. The family laughs once, maybe twice. Someone tells a joke that probably isn't funny, but you're too tired to care. You smile anyway. Not because it's hilarious, but because it's enough. Later, in bed again, under the same quilt, you exhale. The wind is still there. So is the cold. So is the unrelenting knowledge that tomorrow will be the same, and the next day, and the next. But so are you, wrapped in flannel, buried in blankets, muscles sore, lungs steaming, soul quiet. You are Abraham Yoda's give or take. And this is how the Amish survive winter. Not with shortcuts, not with secrets, but with rhythm, silence, and the sheer quiet audacity of getting up and doing it all again. Welcome to your home. No, not your house. Your home. Because in the Amish world, a house isn't just a place with walls. It's a statement. A statement made with local timber, hand-forged nails, and an absolute refusal to insulate. It's 2 stories tall, built like a fortress, and shaped like a very determined rectangle. The exterior is clapboard, not because it's stylish, but because it's functional. And style is something the English worry about. You don't paint it. You don't decorate it. You don't hang little signs that say, live, laugh, love, because no one here is laughing. Not in January. The siding is greyish-white from decades of sun and snow. The windows are few, small, double hung with storm glass sometimes, but mostly it's just panes so thin they shiver when the wind groans. The wind always groans. There is no front porch, just steps, wooden, warped, icy. Your boots never quite grip them right. Every exit is a leap of faith and friction. Inside, everything is made of wood. Walls, floors, ceilings, all pine or oak, depending on your grandfather's temperament. The scent is perpetual, a quiet mix of smoke, dust, and yesterday's lard. The floorboards are sanded smooth by generations of boots, and the kind of patience that only exists when you churn your own butter. Every door creaks, every drawer sticks, every cabinet requires a little shove with the knee and a quiet prayer. Nothing is silent here. Even the furniture has a voice. Speaking of furniture, it's all handmade, probably by your uncle, maybe by you. Tables are solid enough to host arm wrestling matches and theological debates at the same time. Chairs are stiff-backed, ladder-style, with a kind of upright dignity that makes you sit straighter out of fear. Cushions are rare, luxuries, things you make for guests, but never yourself. The walls are bare, no family portraits, no art. Maybe a scripture verse in German, cross-stitched and framed, reminding you that hard work is the only thing standing between you and eternal damnation. Otherwise, it's plain, intentionally plain. The Amish aren't minimalists because it's trendy. They're minimalists because comfort is a distraction, and distraction is a gateway to ruin. Your bedroom is upstairs. The ceiling slopes like it's hiding from the wind. The windows rattle. The quilts are thick, layered like geological strata. Each one made by hand. Each one telling a story no one speaks out loud. There's no mirror, no dresser full of options. You have one coat, one hat, a few shirts. You don't pick your outfit, it picks you. In the corner there's a chamber pot, because going outside in the middle of the night during a snowstorm isn't just inconvenient, it's a dare from God. You don't use it lightly, and you definitely don't forget to empty it. The bathroom is somewhere else, maybe a little wooden room out back, perched like a stubborn box on the edge of your property, with a crescent moon carved into the door like a cruel joke. It's an outhouse. It's not heated. The seat is a frozen plank. The draught sneaks up your legs like a thief. You don't linger. You don't exhale. You just get in, get out, and pretend your dignity stayed intact. And then there's the barn. It's not just a barn. It's the beating, hay-scented heart of your existence. It's where you work, store, fix, milk, feed, birth, and mourn. It's made of timber thicker than your thigh and held together by joinery older than your last name. No nails, just pegs, wooden pegs. Because even your fasteners are humble. The interior is massive, cold, dimly lit by daylight leaking through the cracks. The floor is packed earth, layered with straw, mud, and whatever today's animals contributed. You know it by feel, by smell, by instinct. You can walk it blindfolded, and probably have. The rafters are thick with dust, cobwebs, and cats. Always a few cats, semi-feral, half napping, half hunting. The cows stand in their stanchions like living engines of milk and judgment. Steam curls from their nostrils. They chew silently, endlessly, like they're waiting for you to mess up. You store your tools on pegs along the wall. Axes, buckets, ropes. Things with names that no longer matter, because everyone just calls them the old one, or the good one, or don't touch that. They smell like sweat and iron. They don't shine. They don't blink. They just endure. Out back is the woodshed. Less a building, more a roof held up by frozen resolve. It's stacked with logs, split by your hands and your grandfather's ghost. Each one a memory. Each one a task. Firewood isn't just heat. It's a currency. A ritual. A warning. Outside the world is white, not pretty white. Not let's build a snowman, white. Just endless, blinding, throat-tightening, frostbitten white. The trees look like they're wearing shrouds. The sky is the colour of dishwater. The fields are silent, asleep, and utterly unforgiving. The wind doesn't blow here. It prowls. It waits. Then it lunges. It finds your sleeves, your collar, the gap between your glove and your wrist. It whispers things. Secrets. Lies. It tells you spring isn't real. The silence in winter isn't the comforting kind. It's not peaceful. It's not still. It's heavy. It presses on you. Settles in your chest. Clings to your clothes like moisture. It's the sound of the world holding its breath, and it makes every little noise, every creak, every breath, every cough, sound like an announcement. Even your thoughts sound too loud here, like they're echoing off the snowbanks. There's no hum of appliances, no distant drone of traffic, no background playlist murmuring from a smart speaker. There's just the sound of the wind weaving its way through the trees, like it's checking to see who's still alive. You can hear the squeak of boots in snow, the soft thud of logs being dropped onto a pile, the distant, deliberate rhythm of a hammer, not pounding but persuading, as someone repairs a fence that no one will use until spring. And the birds. There are only two kinds now. The ones that left months ago, and the ones that stayed behind to judge your life choices from the trees. Everything you own, everything you use, has a texture. Nothing is smooth. Nothing is frictionless. Nothing is effortless. Your boots are leather, worn to the shape of your feet but never quite dry. They creak when you walk, groan when you bend, and hiss when the snow melts off them onto the hearth. Your coat is made from wool so thick it might qualify as a defensive structure. It itches, it holds moisture, it never truly dries. But it works, mostly. The buttons on your coat are bone, carved by hand, maybe from an old soup stock that refused to be thrown away. They're smooth in some places, jagged in others. You feel them through your gloves as you fumble in the dark, trying to fasten your humanity back together before stepping outside. Your gloves are knitted, not lined, not waterproof. Just two stitched together prayers that your fingers stay attached. There are holes in the thumbs. You never mention them. You just rotate which way you wear them, pretending it helps. And then there's the scarf. It wraps 3 times around your neck, once around your chin, and then gets tucked under your coat like a secret you're trying to forget. It smells faintly of mothballs, firewood, and the vague panic of chores undone. It's too tight. It's never tight enough. The air itself isn't just cold, it's active. It moves around you like a thing, a presence. It grabs your face, kisses your cheeks with knuckles. You walk into it like someone crossing a field of invisible opposition. Every step forward is an act of defiance. Every inhale feels like swallowing knives. Inside, the cold is different. It lingers in corners. Sits in the stairwell like a ghost that doesn't believe in exorcism. You chase it with fire, but it only retreats a few feet. The stove glows, belly full of pine, but the warmth dies just beyond the kitchen table. Upstairs, it's like someone bottled the Arctic and poured it into your bedding. You learn to live in zones. You know where the warmth ends and the numbness begins. You learn how to hover your hands just close enough to the stove to feel them again, but not close enough to blister. You learn that opening the oven door while baking is a tactical decision, not a mistake. You learn that warmth isn't distributed. It's earned, hoarded, and shared like smuggled treasure. Light is another currency. No bulbs, no switches. Just oil lamps, candles, and windows that sigh with frost. The glow is soft, golden, and deeply inefficient. Shadows stretch across the room like gossip. You move slowly, carefully, because dropping a lamp isn't just clumsy. It's catastrophic. That's not light. That's fire. You respect it. In the early morning, the sun barely makes it through the frost-glazed glass. It spills into the room in pale stripes, lighting up dust and little else. You measure time in window light. When the kitchen is gold, it's mid-morning. When it's steel grey again, it's nearly supper. There's a kind of beauty to it. Not the Instagram kind. The kind that's hard won. That demands discomfort first. The snow draped over the split rail fence. The way the barn breathes in the cold. The sound of sleet ticking on the tin roof, like it's trying to remember a song. It's quiet, yes, but never empty. Your tools hang by the door. Not because it's convenient, but because it's efficient. The shovel, the broom, the snow scraper, each one worn smooth by repetition. Each one made of metal and wood. No rubber, no plastic, no bright colours. Just quiet materials that do the job and don't complain. Even the broom is judgmental. Handmade from bundled corn husk, it has no flexibility, no whimsy. It doesn't sweep as much as it scours. You use it to scrape the mud off the porch, the straw off the kitchen floor, the snow from your own boots. It leans in the corner like it's waiting for you to mess up. Water comes from the hand pump outside, unless it's frozen. Then it comes from somewhere else. A bucket, a well, the last bit of melted snow from yesterday's boil. You carry it in iron kettles, arms straining, fingers aching, trying not to slosh it onto your wool socks. It takes 3 trips just to fill the barrel. 4 if someone forgot to cover it last night and it froze over. There's no sink, no faucet, just a basin, a cloth, and the icy resolve to wash your hands with water that might as well be made of knives. Soap comes in bricks. It's beige, rough. It smells like lye, not lavender. It does the job and strips your skin of hope. Every corner of the home is in service to survival. There are no accent walls, no decor. The closest thing to a centerpiece is a mason jar of dried beans. The pantry is not a place of inspiration. It's a spreadsheet of root vegetables and intention. Potatoes, turnips, cabbage that's been hanging in a cheesecloth hammock since October, a jar of pickled something you're afraid to ask about. Everything is labelled, but only with a pencil, because permanence is prideful, and seasons change. Time in an Amish winter doesn't tick. It stretches. It lingers. It loops. It doesn't march forward like a digital clock. It drips like sap from a tree that isn't sure spring is real. Your days are not measured in hours, but in tasks. How many buckets you carried. How many logs you split. How many minutes your fingers stayed warm before giving up again. There is no calendar on the wall with glossy photos of lighthouses and inspirational quotes. There's a plain almanac, maybe. A few penciled-in notes about butchering day, quilting circles, and when the bishop might visit. Otherwise, time is tracked the old way, by when the bread is ready, by the length of shadows on the barn, by whether your boots are still wet by supper. Winter slows everything. You don't rush. You can't. Rushing makes you sweat. Sweating makes you cold. Cold makes you stop working. And stopping is not an option. So you pace yourself. You do each thing fully, painfully, attentively. You shovel snow like it matters. Because it does. You carry water like it's sacred. Because it is. You cut wood with the gravity of a priest preparing communion. The house creaks in winter. Loudly. Randomly. The kind of creaking that makes you pause mid-step and wonder if the floorboards are just settling, or silently debating whether to end their career beneath your feet. At night, the creaks get louder, longer, like the wood itself is stretching from all the cold, trying to remember what warmth felt like last August. Rooms change personality with temperature. The kitchen is the heart, but only when the stove is lit. It glows like a furnace of memory, filled with leftover ash and pride. You gather there like moths in flannel. The further from the stove you go, the more things revert to storage. Chairs become perches, corners become threats. The hallway turns into a wind tunnel when someone opens a door. Upstairs is a quiet punishment. Your bedroom especially is not a refuge. It's a box of clean suffering. No heating vents, no rugs, just wood, wool, and whatever body heat you generate under the quilt. At night, your breath fogs the air. Your pillowcase freezes on the wall side. Your feet stay layered in socks, and still they curl like they're afraid of the cold. You fall asleep to the sound of silence so deep it feels like an accusation. The barn is warmer, paradoxically. Not cosy, not inviting, but warmer. Animal bodies create heat. So do manure piles. You find yourself lingering a little longer when you finish feeding, just for those 5 extra degrees of survival. You lean on a beam. You pretend to adjust a latch. You let your hands hover near the cow's flank, like you're checking something, when really you're just reminding yourself what warmth feels like. Every object in the environment has memory. The butter churn is stained from years of labour. The wash tub has rings on the bottom from being boiled too many times. The milking stool wobbles in exactly the same spot it always has, like it's dancing to the rhythm of your ancestors' backs. Even the broom, hung in its usual place, is not just for sweeping. It's a symbol. You keep the threshold clean, Not just because you must, but because it means you're still trying. Even when the wind erases your footprints in minutes. Comfort is not a given. It's a state you negotiate with. A brief window by the stove, a hot cup of sassafras tea in a chipped mug, a quilt fresh from the line, still stiff from the cold but clean, a moment where the draft doesn't touch your ankles. These are luxuries. These are miracles. These are enough. Rest is not relaxation. It is recovery. You don't recline, you lean, you perch. You wrap yourself in stillness like a blanket and wait to feel your fingers again. There is no couch to sink into, no ambient playlist to unwind with, just silence. And heat, if you're lucky. And still somehow, beauty persists. The frost patterns on the window, like glass etchings from a divine hand. The snowdrifts sculpted by wind like ancient dunes. The way the sunrise hits the barn roof, turning it gold for one brief moment before fading back into grey. The environment is not cruel. It just doesn't care about you. And that, somehow, is the point. You are not here to dominate nature. You are here to coexist with it, to live beside it, to suffer with it, to survive it, to find meaning not in overcoming, but in enduring. Even inside your own home, the environment is not controlled. It's negotiated. You shut the draft. You hang a rug on the wall. You shove a quilt under the door. You cook something that warms the room just enough for the steam on the windows to melt. You sleep in your clothes, and some nights, your hat. Not because it's charming, because it's necessary. This is existence. Not sanitized, not optimized, just real. The kind of real that makes you aware of your breath, your limbs, your needs, your limitations. There is no disconnect. You are present, fully, uncomfortably, inevitably, and that presence, the deep, constant awareness, is maybe the only real comfort there is. Because in a world where every object matters, every sound has meaning, and every step takes effort, you are never numb. You are cold, you are tired, you are sore, but you are never numb. And in the Amish world, that is enough. The sun's not up yet. Not really, but you are. Because labour in the Amish world doesn't wait for light. It waits for no one. It starts when the sky is still the colour of cold milk, and the horizon is just a vague threat. Your day doesn't begin. It restarts. You get dressed in yesterday's clothes, because that's what you do. There is no outfit rotation. There's no gym clothes, no lounge set, no business casual. There's just work-worn wool, stiff denim, and shirts that smell like wood smoke and generational disappointment. And boots, always boots, caked in manure, hardened by frost, shaped like foot-sized coffins lined with socks. The first job is the barn. Always the barn. The animals need feeding before you do. Before God does. Before your fingers even know they're awake. So you walk, half asleep, through snow so deep it might have a zip code. You open the barn door, and the smell hits you. Warm, wet, vaguely offensive, and somehow comforting. Like being slapped with a hot blanket that's also alive. The cows greet you by existing, loudly, steamy breaths, heavy eyes. Their bodies radiate heat and obligation. You fill the buckets with feed, a mix of oats, corn, and something you hope is still edible. You throw down hay like it's confetti at the world's most joyless parade. You break the ice in their water trough with a stick, then your boot, then a look of quiet desperation. Milking comes next, by hand, always by hand, and you sit on a three-legged stool so old it might remember your grandfather's jokes. The cow shifts, you adjust. You reach for the udder like it's a bomb that needs defusing. You squeeze, rhythmically. 1, 2, 1, 2. The milk hits the pail like applause from a very specific audience of ghosts. There are 6 cows this morning. Or maybe 7. You lost count after the 3rd because your fingers went numb and your brain started counting regrets instead. You finish. You wipe your hands on a towel that used to be white. You carry the heavy metal pails back to the house, arms shaking, milk sloshing dangerously close to your boots. Inside, the kitchen is alive. People moving. Fire crackling. Your mother ladling oatmeal like a battlefield medic. Your siblings blinking sleep from their eyes like newborn deer. You eat fast. You don't talk. You shovel hot food into your mouth like it might disappear. Because it will. It always does. Then it's time for outside chores, again, because inside is a privilege, and you haven't earned it yet. Firewood must be split, always, because warmth has an expiration date, and the stove is greedy. You grab the axe. The blade is dull. The handle is wrapped in twine, because it cracked last winter, and no one's replaced it. You don't sharpen it. You just swing harder. The wood resists. Of course it does. Nothing wants to split in the cold. Not logs. Not hands. Not families. You plant your feet. You raise the axe. You bring it down. It bounces. You try again. And again. And again. Until the log finally gives up and splits with a sound like breaking bones and relief. Each piece is carried, stacked, rotated. You don't throw wood. That's lazy. That's careless. You place it. With respect. With practice. With the awareness that someday someone will burn this and you'll be the reason they're still alive. Then you sweep the path, the porch, the barn aisle, the ashes from the stove. The snow that's crept in under the door like an invited sin. You sweep because clean is holy, because order is proof that you haven't given up yet, even though part of you wants to. You fix a hinge that froze. You rehang the barn door that the wind tried to steal. You patch a glove with thread that breaks halfway through. You hammer a nail into a board that no longer wants to be part of the barn. Every task takes twice as long in winter. Because nothing works. Because your fingers don't bend. Because time drags itself across the frozen ground like a tired ox. Mid-morning, someone breaks the silence. A reminder. The neighbour's fence is down. Again. Which means hitching the buggy. Which means walking to the barn. Again. The horse is not in the mood. Neither are you. You wrestle with the harness. The leather stiff. The metal buckles frozen to your gloves. You try not to swear. You mutter instead. The horse rolls its eyes, like this is your fault. You finally get the buggy moving. The wheels creak. The axles groan. The snow under the runners compresses like powdered sorrow. You ride down the road in silence, save for the jingle of tack and the occasional grunt from the horse. There are no heated seats, no music, no GPS. Just wind, white, and the knowledge that when you get back, the chores will still be waiting. At the neighbour's place, the fence is worse than described. Posts bent, rails broken, adrift 4 feet high, sitting where the gate used to be. You sigh, deep. The kind of sigh that leaves your mouth in a cloud and comes back as a sense of humour failure. You shovel first, always shovel first. Then you find the tools in the wagon bed, nails, hammer, spare rails. You dig, you brace, you patch. You hammer through gloves, through pain, through logic. Your hand slips once. The hammer finds your thumb. You pause, breathe, whisper a prayer that's half confession, half complaint. You finish by noon. Or something like noon. The sky is too grey to tell. You return. You unhitch. You feed the horse. You forget to eat. Someone reminds you that laundry needs washing. Winter doesn't care about socks. Neither do chores. You fill the tub with snow. Melt it over the stove. You scrub each piece with soap that burns and rinse in water that bites. You wring the fabric until your knuckles scream. You hang it outside on the line. It freezes in minutes. Each shirt stiff. Each sock a small sad flag flapping in the breeze of futility. You step inside, just long enough to hear someone say, "We're low on candles," which means tallow, which means boiling fat, which means 3 hours of melting, straining, dipping, waiting. You hang them from a dowel. They cool in the breeze. You carry them inside. One breaks. You don't scream. You just start again. And through all of this, the sweat, the aches, the bruises, the 1,000 quiet insults of cold and repetition, no one thanks you. Not because they're unkind, but because thanks isn't the point. You don't work for gratitude. You work because it's what's done. Because rest is a privilege. Because warmth has to be earned, one blister at a time. And the worst part, you're still not done. Somewhere around mid-afternoon, though time has started to feel like a rumour, you move on to the next job. Which one? Doesn't matter. Pick one. They all need doing. Maybe it's mucking out the stalls. Maybe it's stitching a harness. Maybe it's helping your youngest sibling carry buckets of water that slosh with the specific joylessness of half-frozen livestock backwash. The details blur because the labour doesn't come in neat tasks. It comes in waves. Every corner of the property is a responsibility. Every object, a question you're supposed to answer. The broom needs a new binding. The feed trough has a crack. The hinge on the cellar door groans when it opens and screams when it closes. No one tells you to fix it. You just do. Because you're expected to notice. Because not noticing is carelessness. And carelessness is dangerous. Out here, a forgotten tool is a broken toe. A frozen pipe is a lost week of water. A missed chore isn't a lapse, it's a risk. Even inside, the work doesn't stop. You rotate food in the root cellar. Potatoes on top. Turnips below. Watch for soft spots. Mould is a quiet saboteur, creeping through sacks like a scandal. You scrub the wooden counters, not with spray cleaner, with vinegar and steel wool. You do it in silence. You scrape away months of invisible grime until your wrists ache. You wring out the cloth and it's black. You don't flinch. That's just life settling in the corners. The stove needs more wood, of course it does. The pile beside it is low again. You grab the basket, you head outside, again. You open the woodshed. The wind punches you in the face like it's disappointed. You load the basket until your arms feel like wet laundry. You shuffle back. Your boots drag. The snow grabs at your ankles like it wants you to stay forever. You dump the logs beside the stove. Not on it, not near it, beside it. Too close? They dry out too fast. Too far, you'll freeze during the next reload. It's a dance. You've learned the steps. Then it's dish duty. The water is still hot from boiling earlier. The soap bites your fingers again. The plates are cracked but functional. You scrub in silence, listening to the ticking of the wall clock and the steady breathing of people too tired to speak. You dry everything with rags that were once towels and are now just suggestions. And just when you think there might be a pause, just a moment to sit, to close your eyes, to think a thought that doesn't involve frozen metal, someone walks in and says it, We should probably check the smokehouse. Of course you should. You put your coat back on. You adjust the scarf. You find your gloves under a damp hat and a sermon about accountability. You step back into the white. The snow is thicker now. Deeper. It doesn't fall. It accumulates like guilt. You push through it, boots sinking with every step. Your breath puffing out like you're arguing with God, and He's not listening. The smokehouse stands in the corner of the yard, like a small square omen. Inside, it's warmer, but barely. You check the hooks. You rotate the slabs. You scrape ice from the corners. You make a note to come back with more sawdust. You leave with your hands smelling like cold ham and quiet duty. You return. You warm your fingers by the stove, just until the pain turns to pins and needles. Then you hear it, the rhythmic knock of snow sliding off the roof. A reminder that the world above is just as indifferent as the world below. You glance at the clock. You think it says 4. It might be 5. The sun is already gone, hiding behind a sky that refuses to commit to darkness. Just more grey. Infinite grey. There's a bucket of carrots to peel, a pair of mittens to darn, a bag of flour to sift. The lanterns need trimming. The wicks need replacing. The animals need checking. You forgot to top off the chicken feed. You know because one of them pecked your ankle on the way back to the barn. You add it to the list you're writing in your head, which now has its own appendix. Even breathing feels like work. Your nostrils freeze every time you go outside. Your lungs protest with every inhale. Your skin is tight. Your fingernails have little half-moons of dirt that no amount of scrubbing removes. But you keep going, because that's what you do. You split kindling for tomorrow. You tie up loose bundles of twine. You sort through candle stubs, saving the longest for Sunday. You sweep. Again. Because the dog tracked in snow. Again. You don't scold the dog. You don't even look annoyed. Because the dog works too. It guards. It herds. It suffers alongside you. And maybe, if you're lucky, someone remembers that the kerosene lamp in the bedroom needs refilling. And they ask you to do it. Of course they do. You fetch the can. You funnel the oil. You spill a little. You wipe it up with a rag. You open a window for 2 minutes so the fumes don't make the baby cough. You close it before your breath becomes visible again. You climb the stairs. The railing is splintered. You meant to fix it. You forgot. You'll remember tomorrow. You always do. You light the lamp. You test the wick. You place it carefully on the shelf beside the bed. The shelf your grandfather built from a felled walnut tree after a lightning storm. You check the matchbox. 2 left. Enough for tonight, maybe. You go back down. Your body creaks like a barn door. Your shoulders ache. You feel every joint like it's made of stone and wet rope. Your hands are raw. Your spine is a loose accusation. But there's still one more task. There's always one more task. Dinner is not rest. It's a pause. A truce. An edible break in the cycle of effort. The food is hot, mostly. The bread is heavy because everything is. The stew is familiar. Same turnips, same onions, same broth that's been recycled more times than your gloves. No one complains. Complaining is wasteful. You chew in silence. Chewing is enough. Conversation is minimal. Not because there's nothing to say, but because you've already said it with your hands, your boots, your back. The things that needed fixing got fixed. The things that broke got logged for later. The things that remain undone will still be there tomorrow. You eat quickly, but not hurriedly. Fast, but present. Every bite is calculated. Every mouthful comes with an awareness of what it cost. In time, in effort, in warmth sacrificed while cooking over a temperamental stove that burns ambition as efficiently as wood. After dinner, there's clean-up. Of course there's clean-up. Bowls are scraped, crumbs swept, leftovers wrapped in waxed cloth and stored on the back porch where the temperature is conveniently fridge adjacent. There is no dishwasher. There is no dish night. There is just soap, water, rags, and the unspoken rule that if you can hold a spoon, you can scrub a pot. After clean-up, there's evening chores. The animals need checking. Again, because they are not machines. They don't operate on your convenience. They eat when they eat. They drink when they drink. They knock over things at night just to remind you they exist. You pull your coat back on, your scarf, your gloves. Again. Everything is slightly damp, somehow heavier. Your boots squeak. The floor groans. You step outside. The cold now is no longer just cold. It's a personality. A presence. It wraps around your legs, sneaks up your sleeves, whispers down your spine. The stars above are brilliant, sharp and uncaring, like diamonds dropped on black slate. You don't look up, you look forward, always forward. You walk to the barn. The snow crunches differently at night, louder, the silence deeper. The door opens with the same squeal. The air inside smells like hay and hot breath and frozen iron. You check the water buckets, top them off, toss another flake of hay, speak gently to the horse who twitches in sleep. Light the lantern only if you need to. Most nights you don't. You walk back slower. Not to admire the night, but because your knees now speak a language you can't unhear. Your thighs ache. Your fingers tingle. You drag a stick through the snow behind you, not out of boredom, but because your grandfather did. And his father. It's not a tradition. It's a habit. Passed down like flannel and arthritis. Inside again, you shed your layers like bark, piece by piece. Each item hung in the same place it always is. Not out of ritual, but necessity. If you forget, someone else will move it. And you'll wake up tomorrow with one boot missing and half your faith gone with it. Evening in the Amish world doesn't wind down. It cools off. It shifts into lower gear. The stove is fed one last time. The coals stirred. The kettle moved to the side. The embers left to hum through the dark like a heartbeat under wool. There's no lounging, no screen time, no escape into glowing rectangles. Just sitting, on chairs made by people you knew, reading scripture, mending something, rebraiding a rope, listening to the wind. Sometimes there's music, but not played, sung, softly. 4-part harmonies learned by ear, not paper. No instruments. Just breath, pitch, and repetition. It drifts up the stairs, through the walls, into your bones. It doesn't warm you, but it keeps you company. There are moments of laughter. Quiet, but real. Someone tells a story about a frozen buggy wheel. Someone else remembers when the dog chased a turkey into the pantry. It's not riotous, but it's warm. Then comes prayer, not performative, not long, not just head bowed, eyes closed, hands folded with a kind of reverence that comes from knowing how easily life can break if you stop paying attention. Bedtime isn't announced, it's sensed. A shared fatigue settles over the room like dust. One by one, people drift away. Footsteps on the stairs, doors creaking, water poured into the basin, the final sounds of day preparing to vanish. Your room is colder than it was this morning. Of course it is. You slide under the quilt like you're hiding from history. The sheets are clean, but not soft. The mattress sags, the pillow crunches. Your toes curl involuntarily. You consider keeping your socks on. You do. You lie still. Your arms ache from hauling. Your back throbs from splitting. Your knees whisper dark poetry, but your mind is blank. Not because there's nothing to think about, but because everything has already been thought, solved, done. The day took all of you. There's nothing left but sleep. And even that is temporary. You'll be up before light again, because the cows don't wait. The fire won't start itself. The snow doesn't care how tired you are. This is labour, not as punishment, not even as duty, but as rhythm, as meaning, as the slow, silent pulse of a life lived in motion, constant, unrecognised, essential. You do not rest because you're done. You rest because tomorrow is waiting, and it does not wait politely. The Amish don't do thrones, no gilded altars, no medals, no ribbons, no name tags declaring your title. But make no mistake, the hierarchy is there, etched into every nod, every silence, every seating arrangement at the dinner table. It's not shouted. It doesn't have to be. You know where you stand by how often people look at you, and how long they hold your gaze. Too long, you're being evaluated. Too short, you're being dismissed. There is a bishop. Of course there is. You see him once, maybe twice a week. He doesn't wear different clothes. He doesn't sit on a raised platform. But when he walks into the room, people shift. Backs straighten. Voices lower. The atmosphere thickens like soup left too long on the stove. He never raises his voice. He doesn't need to. He speaks in parables and pauses. And when he asks how your family is doing, it's not small talk. It's an audit. Below him are the ministers, not clergy, not really, just men chosen by lot. The idea being that God picks, not popularity. They sit on benches during church with the composure of men who never asked for this, but now carry it like a stone in their pocket. And then there's everyone else. Fathers, mothers, sons, daughters, all placed neatly inside a grid of expectation, so tight you could use it to sift flour. Men are expected to lead, but not loudly, not like in the movies. There's no grand speeches, no motivational posters, just unspoken pressure to build, fix, farm, and pretend that none of it hurts. You don't show fatigue, you don't show fear. You just stand in the barn doorway, chewing thoughtfully, and nod when someone asks how things are going. The answer is always, fine. Women run the household. And by run, we mean operate, manage, and absorb. Every quilt, every jar of canned peaches, every sock with a stitched hole is a resume. You aren't judged by your words. You're judged by your pantry, your orderliness, the tone of your children's posture. No one talks about pride. It's forbidden, but it still exists. In the way Sister Miriam's pie crust flakes better than yours, or how Rachel's laundry is always hanging with military precision, or how someone complimented the bishop's wife's pickled beets and everyone heard it. Children are at the bottom, of course, but not in the helpless, playful way. More in the useful apprentice kind of way. You start carrying things by the time you're 5. You stop crying by 6. You memorise entire hymns by 7. And by 8, you understand that breaking the rules isn't just naughty, it's memorable. And in an Amish community, being remembered for the wrong reason is almost as bad as being excommunicated. Because nothing disappears here. Not your reputation. Not your behaviour. Not the time you forgot to bow your head before a meal and 3 people saw it. They didn't mention it. But they remembered. And now, so do you. There are rules, lots of them. written, unwritten, spoken, whispered. Some appear in the Ordnung, the official unwritten code of conduct passed down orally like ancient scripture. Others just exist in the air, floating around your head like the smell of overcooked cabbage. You don't challenge the Ordnung. You don't ask for a copy. You live it. You breathe it. You follow it without needing to recite it, like muscle memory for the soul. The Ordnung says you can't have electricity. You can't wear bright colours. You can't use zippers. You can't play musical instruments. You can't own a car. You can't take photos. You can't sing harmony in public if it sounds too joyful. You can do other things, as long as you do them quietly, humbly, and in a way that would not raise an eyebrow from someone who hasn't smiled since 1962. You don't walk ahead of someone older than you. You don't sit in a bishop's seat, even by accident. You don't speak unless you're invited. And you never, ever question the way things are. At least not out loud. Punishment is rarely announced. It comes in silence. In absence. In the way someone stops waving to you when you pass by in the buggy. In the way your name vanishes from the church visitation list. In how suddenly your children are no longer invited to help with the neighbour's barn raising. It starts small. Always small. But it grows. You made a telephone call from the neighbour's house. Urgent, of course, but still a telephone. Someone saw. No one said anything. But now at church, you notice no one sits next to you. The bench beside you remains empty, like a polite, padded exile. You wore store-bought suspenders instead of homemade. No one laughed. No one stared. But the bishop tilted his head ever so slightly during prayer. And you've been thinking about that tilt for 5 days now. This is how humiliation works here. It doesn't roar. It simmers. It's not public shame. It's social evaporation. You don't get yelled at. You get forgotten. And that's worse. Because in a world that depends on community, that runs on collective effort, on shared barns and borrowed tools and 20 hands raising a roof together, being quietly excluded is a kind of social death. You're not kicked out. You're just not asked in. And that's just the outer ring. Inside the home there are smaller hierarchies. Who sits closest to the fire? Who gets served first? Who pours the coffee when guests visit? It's not formal, it's not written down, but it's known. Your father speaks at the table, you listen. Your mother asks you to pass the bread, not because she can't reach it, but because it's your job to serve first, eat second. Your older brother corrects your posture with a glance. You nod, you straighten. You're not scolded, you're shaped. And you learn, slowly, inevitably, that the greatest sin here isn't rebellion. It's drawing attention. In the Amish world, conformity is not enforced by force. It's enforced by memory. Everyone remembers. Not just the big things. The time a cousin ran off during Rumspringer, or when brother Eli got caught with a transistor radio and had to reflect for a year. No, they remember the small things too. Like how you wore your hat slightly crooked at the auction. Or how your sister once laughed too loudly at a joke about canned peaches. Or how your buggy curtain was stitched with a thread that looked suspiciously store-bought. No one said anything, but they saw. And now that moment lives on in the silent museum of collective Amish awareness. There is no applause here. No gold stars. No great job stickers on the butter churn. Your reward is not being noticed. Because standing out, even for good reasons, invites scrutiny. And scrutiny is just a polite word for judgment with a slow boil. Say you finish a quilt faster than anyone else. Beautiful work, flawless corners, perfect stitch tension. The kind of craftsmanship that would earn first place at a fair. If you went to fairs, which you don't boast, you don't show it off. But someone notices and says something. "Oh, that's a very nice quilt, Mary." They say it in that exact tone. Not warm, not cold, just loaded. And you smile, but only a little, because now it's a test. If you act too proud, you're being vain. If you act too modest, you're being false. The only correct response is silence, maybe a quick, "It's nothing," followed by a subject change and a long season of avoiding eye contact. Even excellence must be invisible. Children learn this early. You don't rush to answer questions during school lessons, even if you know the answer. You don't raise your hand unless you're invited. And if you do well on your arithmetic, you fold your paper in half and keep your voice down. Because being seen too much is like being warmed by the fire. Nice until someone decides you're standing too close. The Ordnung doesn't say, "Don't shine," but it does say, "Don't distract, don't disturb, don't draw," which in practice means dim yourself. Your clothes help with that. They're designed for it. No bright colours, no patterns. Nothing that glints in the sun or sways when you walk. Your dress is navy, black or brown. Your apron is grey. Your bonnet is shaped not for style, but for disappearance. Buttons are plain. Fabrics are stiff. Everything you wear reminds you that you are not here to be admired. You're here to endure. Even speech follows the same rules. You don't speak unless spoken to. You don't speak loudly. You never speak about yourself. And if someone compliments your pie crust, you redirect with the speed of a guilt-stricken falcon. "Oh, it's not that good. Sarah's was much better." Because Sarah is in the room, and she's listening, and she's already thinking about how your crust held together better than hers, and now she's wondering if she's a prideful failure. So you help her out. You diminish yourself just enough. And in doing so, you both survive another day unremarked. There is status, of course, but it's always unofficial. It hovers. Families have reputations. Hard-working, quiet, faithful, or worse, different, worldly, quiet, but not in a good way. Your name comes with a backstory, and you had nothing to do with it. Your father's temper, your uncle's odd views on horse tack, the way your cousin's beard didn't quite grow in full. All of it attaches to you like cold on a wool coat. The women watch each other too, but not with cruelty, with precision. Your hemline, your stitching, how much sugar you used in your molasses cookies, whether your broom was left leaning inside the door or outside. These aren't petty things, and these are cultural readings, and they all say something. Too much sugar, indulgent, too little, stingy. Broom inside the door, prideful. Broom outside, lazy. No one tells you the rules. You just feel them. Like walking across a frozen pond, blindfolded, guided only by the sound of cracking ice. Marriage adds another layer. It locks you into the social web like a fly in a modest handmade doily. Suddenly, you're not just yourself. You're the wife of someone, the husband of someone. Your worth now braided into theirs. Their work ethic, their spiritual sincerity, their ability to milk a cow without making it kick. If your partner is too strict, too kind, too quiet, too funny, it reflects on you. If your children misbehave in church, you carry it. If your mother-in-law whispers that your prayer cap sits too far back on your head, you think about it for the next 4 weeks while kneading dough and wondering if your soul is tilted too. You can't win. You can only remain. And the only thing worse than being seen is being different. Let's say you feel something. Not pride, not ego, just different. You like to draw. Not scenery or flowers, not chickens in profile. You sketch buildings. Shading. Angles. Light falling across rooftops. It feels dangerous. You don't show anyone, of course not, but you hide the sketches under the floorboards of your room. You take them out when no one's home. You look at them with a guilt so quiet it aches. Because drawing is fine, but this kind of drawing, too much like art, too expressive, too much self. And self is a slippery slope. So you fold the paper, you tuck it away, you tell yourself it doesn't matter, until someone finds it. And then, no yelling, no punishment, just a long silence, a nod, a few exchanged glances, a question about where your mind is these days. If you've been praying enough, if you've considered spending more time helping your uncle with the horses, you say yes. You always say yes, even when you mean no, because in the Amish world, saying no out loud is like building a door no one asked for, and people will remember the wood you used. You can follow all the rules. You can learn the Ordnung by heart without ever reading it. You can kneel perfectly, speak modestly, smile briefly. You can spend your whole life walking the invisible line between good and too good, never stepping out of place. And still, it might not be enough. Because sometimes you slip. And sometimes you don't even slip. You just change. That's the part no one says out loud. Change is the real danger. It starts small. A cousin cuts his beard differently. A friend begins humming a tune that doesn't come from a hymn book. Someone rides in a neighbour's truck during an emergency, but doesn't look quite sorry enough about it. No one reacts right away. The silence is always the first sign. At first, it's polite. People still greet you, but with slightly fewer words. Their smiles are slower, their answers shorter. The men at church stop asking for your opinion about fencing tools. Your name gets left off the list for wood-cutting rotation. You're not punished. You're peeled. One layer at a time, your inclusion is worn away. You speak less at meals, not because you have nothing to say, but because every word feels like a rock tossed into a frozen pond. Too loud? Too sharp? Too disruptive? You keep your head down. You try to recede, but the eyes still find you. Not angry eyes, not even suspicious ones. Just disappointed. And that's worse. Because in this world, disappointment carries more weight than rage. Disappointment lingers. It echoes. Then if it continues, if you keep being seen, keep being different, the bishop visits. Not with fire and brimstone. He doesn't arrive with scrolls and threats. He just shows up. Sits in your living room. Sips tea from a mug that says nothing. And talks slowly, gently, like he's trying to fold you back into the shape of who you used to be. He'll ask about your work, your health, your prayers. And finally, so gently it almost floats, he'll mention a concern. It won't sound like a warning, but it is. If you change course, apologise, conform, the silence lifts, slowly, the eyes soften, the rotation resumes. The bench beside you fills again. It's never spoken about. It simply stops happening. But if you don't, then comes the next layer. Meidung. Shunning. And it is exactly what it sounds like. You're not yelled at. You're erased. No one eats with you. No one accepts food from your hand. No one shares tools. No one sits beside you at church. If you speak, people nod. But they don't answer. Your voice floats into a room like smoke and disappears. You live in the same house. You wear the same clothes. You milk the same cows. But you exist behind a layer of invisible glass. You are not gone, but you are unreachable. Your family, even if they love you, cannot touch you. They cannot serve you food. They cannot ride in your buggy. They cannot hold your hand, even if you are crying in the barn at midnight, because your name has become a kind of silence. And no one speaks badly of you. That would be gossip. They just stop saying your name at all. The Maidong can last months, years, sometimes forever. There is a path back. Of course there is. It's called repentance, confession, return. You can stand before the congregation and admit your error. You can say the words that knit you back into the fabric. And when you do, the silence ends. But the memory doesn't. Because even forgiven, you are still remembered. Not as the one who returned, but as the one who left. It doesn't need to be dramatic. You don't need to be shunned to feel the weight of the hierarchy. You feel it every time you choose not to speak when someone misquotes a verse, just to avoid being that one. You feel it when you fold your apron a second time, because you're not sure if the first fold looked humble enough. You feel it when you write a line in your diary that says, "I wish I could," and immediately cross it out, because you can't. Because want is dangerous. Because in the Amish world, visibility is temptation, ambition is pollution, and self, in all its small, flickering hunger, is something to be extinguished, not fed. So you learn to bow deeper, speak softer, smile just enough to be remembered for your kindness, but never your personality. You build a reputation out of predictability, and in time you disappear perfectly into the shape you were assigned. This is not cruelty, this is survival, not from nature, not from weather, not from the world outside, but from each other. In the Amish world, God is not an idea. He is the architecture. He is in the grain of the wood, in the hiss of the stove, in the silence between footsteps. God is not up in the clouds. He's in the cold draft under your bedroom door, watching, waiting, measuring. Belief here isn't casual. It isn't an accessory you wear to church and take off after brunch. It isn't a playlist of inspirational quotes and coffee mugs that say blessed. It is total. It is encompassing. It is everything. The Ordnung, that unwritten code of living, is not just a set of rules. It is scripture filtered through generations of human hands until it hardened into ritual. There is no room for interpretation, no room for debate. It is not flexible. It is not questioned. It is recited with the body, not the mouth. And if the Bible is the compass, the Ordnung is the map. Church service happens every other Sunday. That sounds relaxing. It is not. Services rotate between homes. A living room becomes the sanctuary. Benches are hauled in on wagons, long, wooden, cold. Sometimes used for sit-in. Sometimes flipped over and used as tables for the meal afterward. Multi-use, like everything Amish. There is no church building, no stained glass, no organ, no pulpit, just a room, a heater, if someone remembered to feed the fire, and the pressure of 40 souls crammed into a space that smells like boiled wool, damp boots, an unspoken fear of spiritual failure. You sit for hours, literal hours. 3, sometimes 4. No backrests, no cushions, just planks and posture and patience. You sing from memory. Not loudly, never loudly. And never in harmony, not during formal worship. Harmony is beautiful, but beauty tempts pride. So you sing in unison. Flat, unadorned. Faith stripped down to its raw bones. There are no instruments, not even a pitch pipe. The song starts when someone starts it. No cue, no count-in. Just a human voice emerging into silence like a confession wrapped in melody. And the songs are slow, not metaphorically slow, not this feels long, slow, glacial, monumental, time stretching. One syllable can stretch across 10 seconds. A single verse might outlive a pot of coffee. Each hymn is a weighted blanket made of language and repentance. Children squirm. Old men nod off. Babies cry. No one reacts. Because emotion here is not part of worship. Endurance is. The sermon follows. Delivered by one of the men chosen by lot. It is not passionate. It is not dynamic. It is long. It is low. It wanders like a man lost in the fog of his own righteousness. There are no notes, no outlines, just scripture and memory and the slow unravelling of moral implications. And you listen, you have to. Not because you're afraid of missing something, but because not listening is a signal, a tell, that your faith is slipping. And once your faith slips, everything else follows. Church is not about individual inspiration. It's about collective submission. You don't come to be filled. You come to be emptied of ego, of will, of ambition. You enter with thoughts and exit with obedience. There is no communion wine, no dramatic altar calls, no candles flickering to symbolize grace. There is prayer and stillness, and the long, slow wearing down of self. You leave church not uplifted, but calibrated, and the control doesn't stop there. Why would it? Belief in Amish life is a 24/7 assignment. When you work, you do so in God's name. When you rise before dawn, it's not just for the cows. It's because sloth is sin. When you churn butter, you're not just feeding your family. You're feeding the humility required to keep pride from finding the door. Even eating is spiritual. Meals are opened and closed with prayer. Heads bowed, eyes shut. A silence that stretches too long to be comfortable and not long enough to escape yourself. If someone forgets, even once, the whole table remembers. For years, no TV, no radio, no distractions, only time. And into that time, belief seeps like cold through the floorboards. You believe when your fingers ache. You believe when the pipes freeze. You believe when the only warmth in your house is coming from a stove that requires daily sacrifices of your lumbar spine and dignity. Belief is not an event. It is the water you carry, the wool you wear, the weight you carry on your shoulders even when the sled is empty. In this world, belief doesn't inspire freedom. It replaces the need for it. When your entire life is shaped by doctrine, freedom becomes irrelevant. Choice is not empowering. It's distracting, dangerous. The very concept of deciding for yourself implies that you might choose wrong. And in the Amish world, wrong is not just a mistake. It's momentum. It starts as a skipped prayer and ends with a Buick. So instead of choosing, you surrender. Quietly, repeatedly. You surrender in the way you tie your bonnet strings, in the order you milk your cows, in the fact that you never say I think, only we believe. You don't listen to sermons because they're interesting. You listen because listening is obedience. Obedience is safety, and safety is salvation. You sweep the floor because dust is disorder, and disorder invites pride, and pride is the hinge on which sin swings open. You shovel snow off the path, not because you expect guests, but because a clear walkway reflects a clear heart. You cut wood with your back screaming and your fingers numb, not because you enjoy it, but because comfort without labour is considered spiritual theft. The woodpile becomes your theology. Neat, heavy, full of intention. Each log an act of worship. Each splinter a sacrament. Even silence is an expression of belief. You don't interrupt. You don't fill pauses. You let space speak for itself. You let stillness become language. And if someone is grieving, you don't give them comfort, you give them company. You sit, say nothing, and let your presence carry the shape of your faith. Because in this culture, God doesn't need to be explained. He just needs to be obeyed. Your work becomes your prayer, not metaphorically, literally. Your hands hold the doctrine. Your back bears the cross. Your routine is scripture, baked into bread and folded into laundry. And if you ever forget, even for a moment, the community is there to remind you. Not harshly, not loudly, just consistently. A raised eyebrow, a neighbour's glance at your buggy wheel, a comment from your aunt that your sleeves seem just a bit long this season. Correction isn't confrontation. It's a whisper, a gesture, a pause before someone answers your question. The pause that says they've noticed something in you, something that needs smoothing, and so you smooth it. You adjust your hat, you cut your pie a little smaller, you sing a little softer, you make sure your expression reflects contentment and nothing more. Never joy, never pain, never doubt. Doubt here is not a sin, but voicing it is. So you don't. You keep it in your chest like a cold you never acknowledge. It scratches when you breathe, but you ignore it. You chop wood, you mend socks, you feed the chickens, you recite Psalm 23, and you wait for the feeling to go away. And if it doesn't, you call it a test. God doesn't owe you clarity, he owes you challenge. You are not made to be happy, you are made to be faithful, you are not made to be heard. You are made to listen. This is what belief looks like here. It doesn't sparkle, it doesn't shine, it doesn't glow like stained glass in the sun. It weighs, like a quilt soaked in snowmelt, like a cowbell frozen to a beam, like boots filled with slush. You carry it, and you thank God for the privilege of doing so, because your comfort was never the point. Obedience is. You never say the word doubt. That's not how this works. You just feel it. It doesn't come in thunder. It doesn't crash into your chest like a teenage crisis. It arrives quietly, like frost on a window. Slowly, thin, whispering. You're splitting wood, or hanging laundry, or ladling soup that tastes the same no matter what's in it. And then the question arrives. It's not even a big one, just, why does this feel like it will never end? And behind it, a deeper one, is this what God wanted? You blink, the snow falls, you shake it off, you scrub harder, you adjust your head covering, you double your chores that day. Not because anyone asked, but because you hope that productivity will sweep the thought out of your mind, like soot from a chimney. It doesn't. So you pray. But the prayer feels dry, like the words left your mouth but didn't go anywhere, like the ceiling caught them and buried them in insulation. So you pray again, more earnestly this time. Kneeling beside your bed, with a candle flickering against the cracked plaster wall, you whisper louder, hoping the volume will reach further. Still nothing. You begin to wonder if God is cold too. But you don't say that out loud. You'd never say that, because doubt isn't just about belief. Here, it's about betrayal. Not just of God, but of the people who taught you to believe. Your parents, your neighbours, the man who lent you his tools, the woman who braided your sister's bonnet ties at your mother's funeral, the boy who helped you dig a trench so your basement wouldn't flood. You owe them your certainty. So you keep showing up. To Sunday services, to the barn, to the stove, to the lines in the Ordnung that you never read but somehow still memorise in your bones. But something is shifting. Quietly. Maybe it's when you find yourself staring too long at a tree, Not admiring God's creation, but imagining what would happen if you walked toward it and didn't stop. If you just kept walking until the farms disappeared and the language changed and no one asked where you were going. Or maybe it's when you pick up a pen to write in your prayer journal and find your hand sketching the curve of a bird's wing instead, and you don't stop yourself. And when you do stop, you don't feel guilty. And that is what scares you most. Because guilt was supposed to be your compass. It was supposed to catch you, correct you, guide you back to the centre. But now, it's not arriving on time. So you try confession. Not the Catholic kind. There's no dark booth, no screen, no priest in robes, just a talk. You ask for it. You walk up to your minister after service, hands knotted, voice low. I think I've been struggling in my spirit. That's all you say. That's all you have to say. He nods. You sit together in the kitchen. A single oil lamp between you. The silence between words as important as the words themselves. You speak carefully. You frame it as fatigue, as distraction, as a weariness that comes from too much work and not enough sleep. You do not say, I want to feel joy without guilt. I want to dream without doctrine. I want to know who I am without being told. You don't say any of that. Instead you nod when he suggests more time in Scripture, more quiet, more service. You agree that the devil often visits in the cold, that winter numbs the heart as much as the body. You say thank you, and I will, and I understand. And you mean it, mostly. You walk home in silence, the sky black and indifferent, the road beneath your boots groaning like old bones. Your house glows faintly ahead, firelight through wax paper windows. Inside, nothing has changed, and everything has. You sit by the stove and watch the coals dim. You imagine what life would be like if you didn't believe, not in God, but in this, in the ordnung, in the cold obedience, in the endless barter of warmth for submission. And the truth is, you can't. Not really. Because even if you left, even if you ran, even if you learned how to use a microwave and opened a bank account and bought a jacket that didn't itch, the voice would still be there. The voice shaped like your grandfather's cough. The voice that says, if you're not suffering a little, you're doing it wrong, so you stay. And the next morning, you rise again. You dress again. You feed the animals. You heat the stove. You sing the hymns. You fold yourself back into belief. Not because you're certain, but because certainty isn't required. Only obedience. At a certain point in the Amish winter, things stop being hard and start being weird. The body can only take so much wind, so much chafing, so many nights where your socks freeze on the clothesline and your teeth feel like they're made of glass. Eventually you stop thinking in sentences and start thinking in shapes. Symbols, whispers. You forget the sound of your own laugh. You forget why you entered the barn. You stand there, hand on the latch, surrounded by hay and silence, and a faint buzzing in your ears, and you wonder whether you came for eggs or to disappear. But the real horror isn't the frostbite. It's not even the work. It's the outhouse. There is no plumbing here. No heated toilet seat. No porcelain sanctuary with air freshener and a fan that hums like an apology. There is only a wooden box behind the barn. It leans slightly, like it wants to fall over and take you with it. The door never fully closes. The seat is a ring of existential regret, ice cold and carved by someone who gave up halfway. You use it sparingly, strategically, like a soldier running through sniper fire. You layer up before you go. You calculate, you time it. You say a quiet prayer, not for forgiveness, but for speed. The worst part? The seat isn't the coldest thing. The coldest thing is the silence, the way your breath fogs into the still air, and you can hear the wind howling through the cracks in the walls. And for a moment, you realise you are perched above a pit of frozen human waste, while frost settles on your eyebrows and your soul considers leaving. You try to go quickly, but you can't, because your body is also frozen. You stand up. You pull layers back into place. You do not feel clean. You do not feel alive. You walk back across the yard with a gait that says, I have seen things, and you have. Inside, the house offers little comfort. The windows ice over from the inside. Not just frost. Full, sculpted crystals. Branch in patterns like dead trees. Art made by weather. You scrape them off in the morning, and by noon they're back. Sometimes you stare at them instead of doing your chores. You trace their outlines. You pretend they're maps. Escape routes, maybe. But they only ever lead back to the same place. Here. Your bed is not a bed. It's a cold coffin of woven guilt. The mattress is stuffed with straw. Or maybe the memory of straw. The quilt weighs 30 pounds. It traps heat, sure. But only if you earn it. If you lie still. If you don't breathe too much. You shiver yourself to sleep. You wake up colder. The pillow is a block of ice. Not just cold. Hard. Like someone swapped it with a chilled slab of sandstone while you were dreaming of things that don't need mittens. You go downstairs. Someone is already boiling water for porridge. The steam curls into the air like it wants to be somewhere else. You hold your hands over it, not to warm them, just to remember what warmth might feel like. The wood stove is burning. Sort of. It smells like singed dust and boiled socks. The logs inside glow like they're embarrassed. You poke them. They hiss. You sit nearby. Still freezing. You try to talk, but your lips are too dry. They crack. They bleed. No one flinches. Everyone is bleeding. Everyone is chapped. You catch your reflection in the kettle, pale, wild-eyed, cheeks red from windburn, hair doing its own thing under the bonnet. You look like someone who's been halfway to Canada on foot and came back for reasons you don't remember. There is a moment, every winter, when your skin stops hurting. It's not because it healed, it's because it gave up. Your fingertips go numb. Your nose tingles, then doesn't. Your toes become rumours. And you just keep going. Because to stop would be weird. And weirdness here gets remembered forever. You peel potatoes. You churn butter. You drag a sled of firewood across a path that gets swallowed in snow 5 minutes later. You stop questioning it. You just keep moving. One morning you wake up and it's warm. Not outside. That would be too much. Inside. Something's wrong. You sit up. You realise your shoulders aren't clenched. Your teeth aren't chattering. You slept. You smell something. You race downstairs. The stove is out. Not cooling. Out. Everyone else is bundled in blankets. The air is still. The pot of oats is stone. Your father's eyes are wide. You've got the stove. Not you specifically, but someone. And now, the house is dying 1 degree at a time. You scramble. You gather kindling like it's medicine. You blow on embers that aren't there. You make fire from scratch, with wet fingers and desperation. It takes an hour. By then, the silence has grown teeth. No one speaks. Not about blame. Not about failure. Just about how long it'll take to bring the temperature back up. It never quite does. That day everything feels heavier. You spill a bucket. You break a jar. Your boots don't fit right. You step in something you pray was just slush. But the worst part, the absolute worst, is the laugh. You hear someone laugh in the kitchen. One quick burst, unplanned. It wasn't a joyful laugh. It was a broken laugh. The kind that slips out when you're peeling carrots with frostbitten fingers. Someone says, "At least spring's coming." And that's when you realise it. Spring isn't coming. Not really. Not soon enough. Not in a way that matters. Somewhere around mid-January, the house becomes a loop. A repeating sequence of cold and survival. You begin to question time itself. Not in a philosophical sense. In a literal, terrifying one. You walk into the barn holding a bucket of grain. You walk out 15 minutes later with the same bucket. You look down. The grain is still in it. You forgot to feed the animals. You forgot. You stare at your boots and wonder if maybe they've changed since yesterday. They haven't, but they feel like they have. The snow is still falling, but you don't hear it anymore. You've tuned it out, like breathing, or regret. You try to track the days by meals. Porridge means Monday, noodles mean Thursday, pie means a wedding, or a funeral. You're not sure anymore. At some point, the snow covers the cellar door. No one notices, not for hours. Then someone says, "We haven't been down there today." You try to shovel it out. The snow isn't just deep. It's heavy. Dense. Like it's defending the door. Like it knows what's in there. Sacks of potatoes, jars of beets, the pickles your mother swore were just fine, but everyone knows smell like sadness. You dig anyway. You break the shovel. You get another. You dig more. You forget why. The door finally opens. The cold rushes up like it's been waiting. You step down into the dark. The lamp flickers. You swear the pickles are watching you. You grab the beets. You leave fast. Back in the house, someone is talking to the stove. Not at it. To it. It's your uncle. He's crouched beside it, whispering. You pause. He doesn't see you. He's explaining why the fire isn't his fault. Why the wood was wet. Why the matches don't work when he prays too loud. You walk away. You say nothing. Because who among you hasn't talked to the stove by now? Who among you hasn't looked at the flames and said, "Please, I don't care about heaven. Just don't go out tonight." The absurdity becomes normal. The horror becomes routine. You slip on ice 3 times in a day, and by the third, you start rating your own falls. That one was a 6. Good arc, weak landing. Your sister cries while plucking a chicken, and no one asks why. Your father spends 20 minutes looking for the saw that's in his hand. You all pretend it's fine, because it has to be. At dinner the conversation dissolves into stories that don't go anywhere. Your cousin tells a story about milking the wrong cow. Again. He tells it every week now. You nod. You smile. You pretend it's the first time. Someone asks, "Do cows get bored?" No one answers. You sit in silence for 38 seconds. You count them. Later that night, you go to your room. You light the lamp. You forget why. You stare at your quilt. The pattern shifts in the low light. You're sure it didn't look like that yesterday. You crawl under it anyway. You dream about firewood. Not fire, just wood. Stacking it. Counting it. Moving it from one place to another. Forever. You wake up exhausted. Your body aches, but not from injury. From existence. The aches are specific now. Each limb has its own complaint. Your left wrist says, "You lifted too much yesterday." Your right knee says, "You twisted on the ice." Your spine says, "I've had enough of this century." Your fingers don't say anything. They just refuse to bend. You go downstairs. No one greets you. You're not offended. They're conserving energy. like animals in a den, like machines without maintenance. The stove is out, again. No one says it this time. You all just know. Someone stands. Someone else sighs. You hear the familiar ritual, the scraping of tinder, the clatter of wet logs, the long exhale before the match strikes. No one speaks until the flame catches. Then, only then, someone says, "We should check the barn." Of course you should. You always should. The walk to the barn is longer now. Not because of snow, because of time. It has become unstable. You step outside, and it feels like you've stepped into a loop. You pass the fence. The same branch hangs low. The same rooster watches you from the same post. You open the barn door. The same gust of cold air smacks your face like a disapproving ancestor. Inside, the goats blink at you. You blink back. You feed them? You think you fed them yesterday? You think you fed them twice? You think maybe they've started judging you? The chickens cluck in Morse code now. You don't know Morse code, but you're pretty sure they said, "Repent." You step back into the snow and wonder if you're awake, or dreaming, or both. You try to remember the last time you were warm without doing math, without a quilt, a fire, and a prayer all working overtime, without layering up like a sentient onion just to survive a trip to the well. You can't, so you go back inside, and the absurdity continues. The cold gets into your thoughts, not metaphorically, not like a mood, literally. You begin forgetting nouns. You go to ask for the bucket, but say, "Hand me the round, the wet catcher thing." You call your brother father by accident. You call the cat church. You look at a broom and can't remember if it's something you sweep with or something you ride in dreams. You laugh at yourself. The first time it's funny. By the third time it's a symptom. Your dreams no longer follow rules. You dream of hot porridge that bites you back. You dream of barn doors that open into oceans. You dream of a bishop with no face, holding a book with no pages, and somehow you wake up feeling reprimanded. You stop mentioning your dreams. They make the others uncomfortable. Everyone's dreams have gone strange, but no one wants to be the first to admit that the line between sleeping and waking has started to blur like breath on window glass. One night, you hallucinate a second moon. You're outside, carrying a pail of slop to the pigs, when you see it, up there, hanging perfectly still beside the regular moon, just watching. You stare at it. You blink. It doesn't leave. You drop the bucket. You wipe your eyes. You whisper, "Not tonight." The second moon finally disappears. You never mention it, because if you say it out loud, it becomes a thing, and things get remembered. You hear a baby cry, but there's no baby. It's a bird, or a door, or your mind. You tell yourself it's nothing, but you still check the cradle just in case. Your hands are cracked. Your lips bleed. Your shoulders feel disconnected, like they're being carried by someone else. But still, you sweep. You pray. You bake bread that tastes like nothing, because that's what faith tastes like when you're too tired to chew. There is a silence in the house that grows louder each week. It is not peaceful. It is weighted, like a snowfall that never ends, like a hymn that keeps going long after the words have run out. You sit in church and realise you haven't heard a word, not because you weren't listening, but because there were no words, just humming, just presence, just the slow unravelling of sound into shape. You sing along, you follow the others, you bow your head, you fold your hands. You become part of the ritual, not because you believe, but because you've forgotten how not to. Then, one day, a child throws a snowball. in church clothes, on the way home. It hits his sister, and everyone freezes. The parents stare, the bishop's lips part. The girl wipes snow from her shoulder, and for one heartbeat, one single blasphemous heartbeat, you laugh, you catch it, you swallow it. But someone heard. Someone always hears. That night, you get a visit. Nothing harsh, just a knock on the door. A folded man in a black coat. A conversation about propriety. A reminder about reverence. A comment about seasonal lightness being a temptation. You nod. You apologise. You say, I was overtired. But what you mean is, I am unspooling. You go upstairs. You blow out your candle. You lie awake. The wind howls. The roof groans. The walls shrink around your thoughts. And somewhere inside you, the question returns. Not shouted, not loud, just steady. Well, what if I don't make it through this winter? And worse, what if I do, and nothing changes? The next morning, everything's the same. Of course it is. You get up. You crack ice out of the basin. You wrap your fingers around a cup of water and whisper into it, just one more day. You layer up. You face the wind. You split the wood. You stir the soup. You pray until your mouth goes numb. And at some point, while feeding the fire, you hear a whisper behind you. Not a voice. Not quite. Just something that says, it will be spring, eventually. But it doesn't feel like comfort. It feels like a threat. The collapse doesn't happen all at once. It isn't cinematic. There's no breaking plate. No shout in the barn. No full body sob against a prayer bench. It happens mid-stir. You're at the stove. Wooden spoon. Thick pot of something beige. Again. Your hand moves without thinking. Circles. Clockwise, always clockwise. The fire hisses. The pot burps. You look down, and suddenly you don't remember what it is. Is it stew? Oats? Lard? You smell nothing. You taste nothing. You let go of the spoon, and the moment passes. But something has shifted. That night, someone asks how your day was. You say, productive. But in your head the answer is, I think I forgot how to feel. You try to cry later quietly, just to see if it still works. Nothing. The tears don't come. Not because you're strong, because you're dehydrated from the inside out. You start to watch the flame in the stove, like it's telling you something. Not language, just movement. You imagine it saying, keep going, or I won't. You wake up one morning and don't get out of bed right away. That's dangerous. You never lie still. Stillness is indulgent. Stillness invites thoughts. But today you don't move. You listen to the creaks of the house, the dull rhythm of your heart, the long moan of wind dragging across the roof. You think, what if I didn't do anything today? Not out of rebellion, not even out of fatigue, but because the difference between doing and not doing has eroded. Eventually you rise, but slower. Your legs remember before your mind does. You go through the routine like a ghost piloting a person. Feed the chickens, break the ice on the water trough, stir the pot, pray, fold something, check the stove, repeat. You look in the mirror and flinch, not because of what you see, because of what's missing. You expect pain, you expect strain, you expect some flicker of you, but there's just blankness. A face that has become a utility. Features rearranged for usefulness, eyes for vigilance, mouth for obedience, hands for continuity. You're not a person anymore. You're a system that must keep moving, or it fails. And failure means shame, not just yours, the family, the name, the belief. So you move. Even when your knees ask you not to. Even when your knuckles split open just from tying a bonnet string. even when your prayers turn into syllables that don't sound like hope anymore, but like muscle memory trying to keep God from noticing you've wandered. There's a moment, late at night, when you realise no one in the house has laughed in 6 days. Not fake laughter, not nervous politeness, actual laughter. You say it out loud. Has anyone laughed recently? They stare at you, not in anger, not confusion, just pause. Someone says, "Don't be foolish." That's the end of it. You feel your chest compress, like laughter was a breach, a crack in the wall you were never supposed to find. So you seal it. You tell yourself you were mistaken. You move on. The cows still need milking. The stove still needs feeding. Your heart, not today. You stop reaching for warmth the way you used to. Not just physically, emotionally. You used to imagine spring. You used to let your thoughts drift to things that sparkled. Now, you keep your thoughts dull, like a butter knife. Safe, flat, unthreatening. You don't daydream anymore. Not because you're disciplined, because you're tired. Even your imagination has gone still. And in its place you find rhythm. Not joy, not peace, just rhythm. You wake, you work, you wait. Sometimes you sing, but it's not really singing. It's murmuring. A kind of tune your throat remembers, even when your soul doesn't. No one asks how you are. That's not the culture. That's not the language. You don't say, "I'm struggling." You say, "It's been a full day." You don't say, "I don't know who I am anymore." You say, "It's been quiet lately." Every emotion is folded, packed tight, like wool in a chest that hasn't been opened in decades. You learn to flatten everything, even the good. Your cousin gets married. You smile, not too wide. A baby is born. You nod. Quietly. A harvest is successful. You say, "That's a blessing." But you don't dance. You don't shout. You just file the joy away like paperwork. Something to be acknowledged, but never displayed, because display is danger. Display invites correction. Display means attention. Attention means imbalance. And balance is all you have left. The Ordnung doesn't say this, not directly, but you feel it in the silence after someone speaks too long during a meal. You feel it in the tightening of the room when someone raises their voice, even in excitement. Volume is risky, and so the self becomes smaller. Not out of fear, out of efficiency. It takes less energy to be simple. It takes less strength to be quiet. And that's the goal now. Use as little as possible. Speak as little. Move as little. Expect as little. One morning you stare at a crack in the floorboard for 15 minutes. You think that crack has always been there. Then you think, what if it hasn't? Then, does it matter? You move on. There are shoes to be repaired. You begin to see beauty in strange places. A shadow on the wall that looks like a violin, even though you've never heard one. A drip of wax that hardened into the shape of a dove. Steam curling from tea in the light like a ghost that decided to visit politely. You don't speak of these things. They would sound foolish, but they matter, because they're the last proof you're still human, that something inside you is still looking, still seeing, even when everything else has stopped. At night, you pull the quilt up high, not for warmth, for weight. You want to be held down, anchored, contained. You don't want your thoughts to wander. You don't want your body to remember the things it used to need. Softness, attention, laughter so hard it aches afterward. Those things don't belong here. Not anymore. There is a moment when you realise you haven't said your own name in weeks. Not out loud. Not even in prayer. It just faded. And in its place is something quieter. a person-shaped shadow who can carry buckets, answer gently, and kneel for long periods without questioning the floor beneath them. You're not broken. You're efficient. You are a machine that makes survival look like serenity. What you eventually learn, in the marrow of your silence, is that winter isn't something you survive. Not really. Survival implies that something is left unchanged, that you pass through the storm and emerge on the other side, still yourself, only stronger. But that's not how this works. The winter doesn't just test you, it reshapes you. Every week is another sanding, another smoothing, a piece of self worn down, not violently, but gently, patiently, like water on stone. And you let it happen, because it's the only way to remain. Your mind stops asking, what if? What if I lived somewhere else? What if I dressed how I wanted? What if I let the fire go out just to see what happens? Those questions are loud. They bump into things. They rattle doors. So they're not welcome here. In their place, you learn better ones. Have I done what was asked? Is the stove warm enough? Have I kept my voice soft today? Is my soul properly folded? And it's not all bleak. There's something, not joy but rightness, in the simplicity. The moment when the fire catches on the first match. The way a loaf rises just right under the heavy air of January. The sound of the hymn when it fills the room so completely you can't tell which voice is yours. The ritual becomes refuge. The silence becomes shelter. The cold becomes a kind of liturgy. You come to understand that discomfort is not an enemy here. It's a teacher, a companion, a presence as holy as the bishop's sermon or the Bible's spine. The pain in your knuckles, reminder of diligence, the ache in your back, proof of your obedience, the hunger that settles in your belly by sundown, assurance that you didn't waste anything today. The Amish do not conquer winter. They agree to be changed by it. That's the secret. That's what no one says out loud. You don't defeat the cold. You let it in. You let it shape you. And in return, it teaches you to disappear gently into the form of things. Like snow across a roof. Like steam in a prayer room. Like a name that becomes unnecessary because the work speaks louder than the person who did it. One morning, it's warmer. Not warm, just less cruel. You step outside and the snow crunches instead of swallowing your boots. The sun is low but present. It's like glints off the fence post in a way that feels almost unforbidden. You don't smile. That would be too much. But you exhale without bracing. And that, in this world, is an indulgence. You look at the trees. They've survived too. Naked, weathered, bent slightly from months of weight, but still here. Still upright. Still part of the rhythm. Like you. You walk back to the house. The door groans. The floor creaks. The quilt is folded. The stove is lit. And for a moment, just one small flickering moment, you feel something inside you settle. Not relief. Not happiness. Something older. Something like, this is what it means to last. And you realise that maybe you didn't survive the winter. Maybe you became it. The house is quiet now. Not silent, just settled. Like the world took a long exhale and forgot to inhale again. The fire is low. The lamp is out. And somewhere under the thick weight of wall and time, a body lies still. Not from sleep, not from surrender, but because there's simply nothing else left to do. The walls no longer creak. The wind no longer argues. Even the floor, old and patient, seems to be holding its breath. There's no more work tonight. No more prayer. Just the sound of cold pressing gently against the window pane, like it wants to be let in one last time before spring tries again. But spring doesn't come here. Not really. Not yet. And maybe that's okay, because the body is warm enough. Still enough. Gone enough. The last ember glows in the stove, then doesn't, and the world becomes very, very quiet.